Welcome everyone, and happy Boise Entrepreneur Week to you. Thanks for joining us live here at the BEW Studios in beautiful downtown Boise at Trailhead Boise. I am honored to be your host for today, and we have brought in none other than our very own Mayor Lauren McLean to help us kick off the festivities. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, and welcome everybody back to Entrepreneur Week. It's great that we're launching this. Wish we were all in person, but really happy that everybody's able to join remotely.
Yeah, it sounds like a song we sang last year, too. Here we are singing the same song.
Although this is so much more set up than last year. So.
Let's say last year was on your turf.
Yes.
All kidding aside, I'm so happy you took the time to join us today. Obviously, Boise Entrepreneur Week could not happen without the city's support, without your support. And I really wanted to spend some time with you, preferably not talking about the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the last few interviews I've heard of you, you've always been asked, what is it like to be a new mayor during the pandemic? So I took a cue. I'm not going to ask you that. Instead, I want to know from you, what is it like to be the mayor of arguably the coolest city in America?
Oh, I love the reframing of that question, Tim. It's a great one. I'm going to say, just as it's like to be mayor during the pandemic, it's first an incredible honor. It really, really is. And it's super cool. And I'm not doing this work because it's cool, but I agree that we have the coolest city in our country with incredible opportunity because of the great people that we have here who are so creative and committed to Boise. And to get to work every day with my team and residents across the city on this place that we all love is just super, super cool.
Place that we all love. Now, you and I both were transplants to Boise. We did talk about that last time too. Certainly a place I learned to love. And let me pick up on something there. You have been talking about the Boise Way. I've heard you mention it in your State of the City address last month in September. And you know, as someone who actively helps newcomers get onboarded into our entrepreneurial ecosystem, as we call it, I can relate to that. And when you talked about the Boise Way, there were a few things that really resonated with me. But I don't want to speak for you. Tell me about the Boise Way.
Sure. And first I want to say, too, that Boise's the first place in my life that I chose. I bought my first home here, came as a newlywed right out of college. I got my graduate degree here, had my kids here. And it was through making this my home after moving around as a kid and choosing this and then getting to know Boise people and seeing how we all come together with great ideas and are willing to try them, no matter how hard they are, in a pursuit of strengthening the community that we love and building the economy we need to thrive, and then taking care of each other. And that over my early years here as a young mom, building community, working to protect our open space, I really came to understand, and it's what made me want to be involved in our community and what makes this place so special.
Speaking of that, in terms of helping one another and being a mom, I've also heard you mention that your husband's been working from above the garage for quite some time.
Oh my goodness, for so long now.
And you are obviously a very a busy woman. And so I assume he's helping out at home with the kiddos. How has that been for the mayor of Boise? I mean, we've all now have worked from home for quite some time.
Yeah, you know, I worked from home when the governor had the stay-home order in effect. And it was so weird because you were at City Hall right before that and came in and we, you know, in my office, not quite set up, we had this conversation. And then when the stay-home order was issued, I went home too. And we had a desk and a computer delivered, and I set up in our study. And I had people, because I was on Facebook every day giving COVID updates, people asking like, what's that little door behind you? Because I have this tiny door to a basement. My daughter was working, you know, doing college right above me, and she'd send notes on paper down, out through the window. Aiden was in his room doing his work, and he'd come running down. And then Scott has worked from home. He's at truckstop.com and has worked from home since early March, actually. So we had a time when we were all there. And then we had a time when Madeline went back to school and I went back to work, and it was Scott and Aiden. And now it's Scott. I'm still working remotely, as most of truckstop.com is. And he's helped a ton. He really has. I'm lucky because my kids are older, and so we've really done this together. in so many ways. But when I see, especially the struggles of my employees with younger kids, as they're juggling a parent working at home, kids were home, somebody coming into City Hall to do her job or his job, it's a lot of work right now. And again, I see that so many people are making it possible because of the support they have in their families, and importantly, the supports they have in the community.
Speaking of community and support systems, so in this world of us mostly being at home and coming out and then going back home again, how do we go about turning newcomers into neighbors? That's a phrase that you use, and that really resonated with me. What are some of the examples that you've seen lately?
Well, and this, I'd say, goes back to what, I gave the name the Boise Way as I talked about it. And to write that speech, I'd actually done a lot of research on the history of Boise, and I saw this over and over and over again, that you come here as a newcomer, people wrap their arms around you, you become a neighbor immediately. I see that in my own block, as we've struggled throughout the pandemic with different issues, the neighbors show up to take care of you, to check in on your kids, et cetera. I've seen it in the business community and the tech community and entrepreneurial community. People are struggling, others show up. Here at Trailhead, you have the same thing happening where you've got new businesses or folks with a new idea, and then they come here and they're surrounded by people that want to help them make a go of it. And I see that happening like in all aspects of life here in Boise, and it's something that I think is grounded in the fact that we choose to be here, we love this place and her people, and there's an intentionality about it. And then I have to, we're so isolated, so in so many ways we've had to go our own way, and so it creates that space to dream up ideas, to do what people say you can't do, to find the people that help you do it. And then through those efforts, you become so ingrained and connected to the community that you're a neighbor.
Two things I want to kind of pull the string on. One, you said history. So for one, when I watched your State of the City address, I was pretty amazed by how little I knew about the history of Boise and how familiar the situation that we are in right now is if you look back on those decades.
Yeah.
And what struck me about that, Mayor McLean, was that your approach was fairly entrepreneurial because you went and studied. You are making decisions in areas where you're not the expert, but you are going to listen to experts and you're going to get the information. It just reminded me of a typical founder, right? Founders face the same ambiguity when they start businesses. And so when we speak about businesses in the business community, from your point of view, I know there have been many successes in terms of partnerships between the city and the business community. So maybe tell us a little bit about what has gone well in those partnerships, but what else can we do as a business community?
Oh, that's a great question, because the connection between the business community and the city is incredibly important as we build an economy, as we approach affordable housing, as we approach climate, because a city government can't do it alone. We really need partnership. And we also want to support those businesses that are here, whether they start here or move here, but seek to grow here. And I want to point to a couple of examples. We have a goal around clean electricity and carbon neutrality. And we know that to meet those goals, we're going to need the partnership of Idaho Power, a great local business, in their sourcing of power and creation of power. We're going to need partnership of companies that can provide the tools to be more energy efficient, can help us electrify our fleet, electrify our buildings. We're going to need the partnership of residents to join us in those goals. And by us setting goals that we seek to meet or better break, exceed, on behalf of our residents, we want to do it in a way that also supports the business community. Mm-hmm. And most recently, I had a conversation with a manufacturer who will be opening their Western facility here in January or February. And they pointed to the fact that we have climate goals as a city that made them want to come here. It was a differentiator. Mm. And then we actually had a conversation about our goals for clean electricity, which means they then will be able to say to their customers that they have clean electricity. Our goals to figure out a source for what would otherwise go in the landfill that could potentially help them build product. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities to experiment between and with the business community and our local government to meet these goals that we have, which ultimately will build a strong economy.
Climate goals typically are viewed as a barrier to business because people associate climate goals with cost. But I've seen you drive around in a fully electrical, was it a garbage truck?
Oh, I did drive around in a garbage truck, yes. And I drove an electric school bus, and now there's some electric buses in our fleet too. So I would say this, I mean, for too long, businesses looked at climate and like the steps we need to take both as governments and businesses is too expensive. But now businesses are recognizing that there's risk that they need to mitigate for. Shareholders expect them to do it. Our residents I see as shareholders, and the steps we take will save on their electric bills, on their house costs over time. It'll make a healthier place for us all to live in. So there's a lot of costs that we don't necessarily think of immediately. But then what we've found as a city is that as we electrify our fleet, we're saving money. As we've electrified buildings, like the most recent police station, we're saving money. And so working with Idaho Power, attempting to use as much electricity as we can and create partnerships between businesses that can help us do that is a win-win for everybody.
Very nice. I just wanted to remind the audience that if you want to drop any questions into our Slack channel, it is the live Q&A channel. I'm saying that because we do have a question from the audience, and if I may, let's just turn to it. So the question is, how does Boise cultivate an entrepreneur-friendly ecosystem without alienating longtime residents?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. And I'm going to reflect first on, and we talked a little bit about it, the cycles of Boise history, because as our city has grown at different times, we saw huge growth spurts in the 50s, the 70s, and the 90s, if I remember correctly. And there was this fear, as we're feeling now, that our community would change, that with all of the newcomers coming in, it wouldn't be the same. We knew we needed to build and create businesses and economic opportunity for residents. People brought ideas here. And in all those times of conflict around growth, we got through it. And then, so we got through in the 50s, and then in the 70s, we were worried about what we were going to lose what we had then, which was so different than what we had in the 50s. In the 90s, the same thing happened. And of course, it's happening now. And so it's really important that I think that we recognize that this is a cycle our community is going through because we're such a vibrant community. We have so much to offer. That those that came before us and built the foundation for what's possible now are incredibly important. And it's their legacy that we're growing on and leading from.
Standing on the shoulders of giants, I like to say.
And I'd also say that I think that there's a lot of opportunities, and I've seen it play out. Companies that were founded here 10, 20, 30, 50 years ago, their founding families work so closely with those in our community now trying to start businesses. So I think there's actually a great give and take and a way that we can learn from each other and, again, create that community that's incredibly important. But we have to recognize who we are and stay focused on people and the place that we love as we move through these moments.
What startup would you launch today? I asked you that last time.
I heard you were going to ask me that question again. It makes me so nervous. And then I think, well, maybe I shouldn't share it. But no, I was thinking about it. Right now, at least what I'm experiencing is people have really struggled during the pandemic. We've been separated from each other. There have been financial pressures, family pressures, et cetera. And our city's growing. And I would love if I were to work on something, because I think it's incredibly important to empower residents to be engaged. So you find purpose, you create that community, you become a neighbor and committed to the place you love. And as mayor, I've really focused on creating opportunities for residents so I can hear from them to make these tough decisions. So I create an app that allows residents to connect with organizations and volunteer needs and other needs based on the issues they care about, that would allow them to share feedback with elected officials on things they care about, and that would also push out questions that I might have or other folks might have on particular issues to crowdsource ideas.
Yeah, I saw some of those initiatives from the city. You have a listening session, maybe a listening website even. But since I'm out of time, and I'm glad we went over because this was a good conversation. It was the first one to kick off BEW.
Oh, no, now the whole conference is going to be running behind.
You know, the folks that are behind the camera, they're going to work the magic. Then they're going to get us back on track. So no worries there. I'll take full responsibility on that one. That said, coming up next is a talk with Don Day, who interviews Todd Krautkramer from Cradle Point, talking about Cradle Point's exit. But before we do that, a word from our sponsors.